Let me tell you a story about a legend that almost never was. Came from nowhere. His daddy made him a quarterback but never let him throw. Wasn't recruited for college.
I really think I could play. They give me a shot.
Became a star anyway.
And Faz shows some cool on this one, finding Chris McGee for the touchdown.
Tell you a story about a legend who almost died on the highway. Had half his guts taken out. Got drafted anyway.
Atlanta has selected Brett Favre.
Failed in Atlanta.
I was a traveling roadshow in Atlanta.
Got traded.
Where in the world is Green Bay? I couldn't point to it on the map.
Found a home. Became the best football player on the planet.
No one does it better than Brett Favre.
Probably the funniest.
I got some advice for y'all. Take 2 weeks off, then quit.
Definitely the most dangerous.
That's the best tackle of the day.
Brett Favre is a hating mother.
No more rocket balls, please.
Married his high school sweetheart and almost lost her.
It was the lifestyle or family.
Got addicted, went to rehab.
The best thing to do was to get some help, and that's what we're going to do.
Well, he's human.
Won a Super Bowl, lost another, kept on going, kept getting older, lost his daddy.
Get out there and play. Are you crazy? I could see him saying that.
Won our hearts.
I think the legend just grew.
I'm just old and washed up. Trying to hang on.
Brett Favre starts his 200th consecutive game behind center. I got to see this. This Favre out here. Brett Favre.
To hear people say, I would pay X amount of money to go watch Brett Favre play. It may be good, it may be bad, but I love to watch him play. That's the way I play the game. I will give you everything I got, and I will compete to the end.
Stars fade away. Champions come and go. But legends, they're forever.
The miracles never cease here at Lambeau Field.
Who was this guy now? How you pronounce his name?
Brett Favre was born and raised in Kill, Mississippi. Don't bother looking for it on a map. You won't find it. He grew up on a road named after his daddy, and that's where Big Favre started his son on the path to being a legend.
My dad was a football and baseball coach, and that's all I knew. From as far back as I can remember, I had a baseball in one hand, a glove in the next, and a football under my arm.
My first game ever, 5th grade jamboree, 3 touchdowns running. I got in the end zone, the guy pulled my pants down.
And looking back, I know that he was much tougher on me than the other kids.
If you get hurt, you crawl off the field. When you can't crawl off the field, I'll come get you. It wasn't nothing for me to pick up a belt, pick a board up and wear somebody's behind out.
As hard as he was on me, and at times, it was, I'd say that under my breath. I wouldn't say that to him. I wouldn't trade the way I was raised, because when I got in front of other coaches, they were tough, but it was like, at least I don't have to eat supper with them. It doesn't get any tougher than that.
The statue that marks Brett's career at Hancock North Central shows a strong-armed gunslinger poised to pass. The truth is, Big Irv rarely let him throw, opting to constantly run it.
Favre throws it in for a touchdown.
When I played, it was 838 power pitch, which seemed fitting because I was the lead blocker. I loved it. At least got to do something.
I knew Brett could throw, but back then I wasn't worried about just showcasing him and getting him a scholarship. We won 16 ball games in those 2 years. We didn't need to throw it.
Brett Favre throws on the keeper for Hancock North Central.
Big Irv's devotion to the running game almost grounded his son's career. When Brett graduated from high school, Southern Mississippi was the only Division I university to offer him a scholarship.
I really think I could play. I think I got the good arm, and I think if they give me a shot, I think I can do it for them.
The moment he arrived on campus, the party started.
I didn't start drinking really until I left high school.
Oh!
Me and my roommate, Chris Riles, he talked me into playing this game quarters. But we didn't have a quarter, so we took the washer off the sink. And we went and bought a case of Schaefer Light, because that was, $3 a case. Neither one of us were playing the next day. As we were drinking, I'm going, thank goodness I'm not playing. Well, little did I know, somewhere in the second quarter, the head coach looks at me and says, get ready. He says, you're in. I mean, I was kind of feeling queasy before the game, but I really was feeling queasy now. I'm like, oh my God, I was so nervous.
Southern Miss put a freshman in at quarterback, Brett Farve, and Farve shows some cool on this one, finding Chris McGee for the touchdown.
That was the last time I ever drank before a game, I can promise you that.
Farve led the Golden Eagles to a comeback victory and became their starting quarterback.
Here's a 17-year-old boy coming into the game. He's a true freshman, and probably the most exciting thing that I've ever had happen to me when you see your own child go in a game like that and do so well.
By the end of his junior year, Farve had the eye of NFL scouts and was being touted for the Heisman Trophy. That all vanished on July 14th, 1990, just a mile from his home.
My sister-in-law got the phone call, and she said, come on, we got to go. Brett's been in an accident. And then when I saw the car, I thought, there's no way he made it.
I remember him sticking a tube in my nose. I'm wide awake, blood's gushing out of my nose. And they said, we got to have emergency surgery. 30 inches of your intestines has died, and we have to take it out now.
I'm in so much pain right now, I can hardly raise out of this bed.
Everyone else is saying, I don't know if he's going to play. It doesn't look good. Dad wasn't one of those to say, we'll sit this one out and come back next year. He just kind of sat in the back, doctor leaves. He said, I don't know. I think a few days, I think you'll be fine. And I kind of thought the same way.
I've played 3 years. I know the system. And it's just a matter of getting back in shape and getting back out there and throwing some passes.
I remember walking out of the hospital. I haven't seen sunlight in 7 days, and the sun was just blinding, and I was just pale white. Our first game was against Delta State here, which was a month after my surgery. I didn't even dress for the game. The following week we played Alabama, and I said, I'm playing.
We want to get this clear now. Brett Favre will start.
My uniform, which fit me before, sagging off of me. I'm like, it's one of the lineman's jockstrap that I get. I was just shriveled up.
He barely passed for 100 yards, but he played, and he won, revealing the courage that would one day make him football's Ironman quarterback.
The Southern Mississippi Eagles upset Alabama 27-24.
It would not be the last time that Brett Favre beat the odds. Draft day 1991. Half of the kill packed Big Irv's house and watched Brett Favre get passed over for quarterbacks Todd Marinovich and Dan McGuire. After 6 hours, he finally got a call from the New York Jets.
Well, if Atlanta doesn't take me, they're taking it.
Atlanta has selected Brett Favre, quarterback, Southern Mississippi.
The NFL got his name wrong, but Favre was certain the Falcons got the right man.
Well, we'll see in the coming years who's the best quarterback, and I think
he was third on the Atlanta Falcons depth chart and his coach's #1 punchline.
He looked like a 3-year project, and I was working on a 2-year contract.
This is my lasting impression of Jerry Glanville. And it's funny, but at the time it wasn't funny. I walk out and he said, hey, Mississippi. I said, hey, Coach, how you doing? Call me Jerry. I said, okay, hey, Jerry. He says, what school are you from, Mississippi? I said, Southern Miss. Yeah, I'm a Southern Miss. He said, nah, damn, we drafted the wrong guy. We wanted a guy from Mississippi State.
Where's Mississippi? Is he throwing spirals? He throws spirals. We're going to have a damn party. Mississippi, you're not going to play tonight? I tell you what, we got to have 2 plane wrecks and 4 quarterbacks go down, and you're it.
I was a traveling road show in Atlanta. The only thing they used me for was Jerry Glanville would bet guys when we went to stadiums that I could throw the ball on the 3rd deck. And hell, I thought I was somebody. Everybody, come on. Mississippi's going to show us something. I bet anybody $100. Farve can throw it up in the third deck.
Yeah, I could always sucker in somebody that hadn't seen it, and I always bet on Mississippi because he didn't care if he dislocated his arm if we could win the bet.
I'm over there, you know, we're giving them one of these. The guys, they putting up $100. I mean, the money would exchange hands with Jerry now.
Brett Favre's first pass in the NFL was a touchdown, but not for the Falcons.
Grabbed and picked off for a touchdown, Washington Redskins.
And he ran to me, and he goes, "Can you imagine, Coach? My very first pass in the National Football League went for a touchdown." And he was kind of excited. And I said, "Yeah, but it wasn't our touchdown, it was there." He goes, "Years from now, nobody will remember. It was a touchdown." And that's the kind of spirit he had.
Unfortunately, it was the kind of spirit that loved, well, let's just say, other spirits.
When the lights went out, it was time for Mississippi to come out. I'll never forget, I went into a meeting, and he was sound asleep in the meeting. And I went to go over and raise all kinds of difficulties. And the closer I got to him, I could tell why he was asleep.
I missed a team picture in Atlanta because I was hungover. You know, I mean, I tell people I played for Atlanta, and if they happen to get the team picture, they're going, "What a liar. You didn't play for them."
I can remember I was in my car leaving. The team picture was over, and here he comes driving the other way. Things had changed that day. Everybody loved the guy. I loved the guy because of his spirit. We just had to harness it, which we didn't do.
And so after one season, the Falcons gave up on Brett Favre.
No one, including me, knew what was to come.
Well, almost no one. The Green Bay Packers' new general manager, Ron Wolf, had tried to draft Favre a year earlier for the New York Jets. Wolf was so certain of Favre's talents that he traded a first-round draft pick for him, even after Favre failed his team physical because he suffered from the same hip condition that ended Bo Jackson's career.
I was told that he'd be able to play 5 years. So
that was good enough for you?
That was good enough for me.
Since Super Bowl II, the Packers had won exactly one playoff game. Now it was up to new head coach Mike Holmgren and quarterback coach Steve Mariucci to train a player whose only accomplishment in the NFL was throwing a football into the upper deck.
I still have drill film from him in his first mini camps. You know, first impression, this is going to be a project. Now, he wasn't starting. Don Majkowski was playing, and so he was going to be a backup. Don Majkowski, Magic Man, had some success there. Very popular guy in Green Bay.
The Magic Man had earned his nickname for his knack of making great plays. That first season, Favre's sole responsibility was to signal in the plays with fellow backup Ty Detmer.
Me and Ty's over there. We're not playing, so we're going to make it tough on Majkowski.
He's making up all kinds of crazy signals and dancing, or, you know, who knows what he was doing.
Because we made up the signals. To me, the first few weeks, that was the most fun thing I did. We're doing this for Texas. You know, we're doing the lasso and all. So Mooch is over there with us and stuff. He's like, I don't think that one will work. Yeah, that'll work. And when I got to play, they wasn't near as funny as they were as I was making them up.
Favre's first completion as a Packer was to himself. A marked improvement over his first pass as a Falcon, but things got better in a hurry. They had to. The Packers lost their first 2 games. Early in their third, they lost Majkowski. Exit Wally Pipp, enter Lou Gehrig.
I remember thinking on the sidelines, here I am, a first-year head coach. I'm never going to win a game in this league. Brett went in, and I saw some of the darndest things I'd ever seen in my life.
First play audibles to a play we've never worked on before.
24, 24. And I drive back thinking, boy, I just did something good, and I get drilled in the back. Fumble. I was like, where did that guy come from? I was running around and just, I think I lost 2 or 3 fumbles and could have lost 6 or 7. Let's got to get better than this, because I won't be around long.
But we're in the game.
Well, you got a minute 7. You still got a chance. If you score a touchdown and an extra point, you could win it 24-23.
And he threw 3 of the most beautiful passes I'll ever see in my life.
If you ever wondered what it looks like when a legend is born, this is pretty much it.
Huge win, but if I'm not mistaken, he was also holding for us. He was holding for the extra points. He didn't want to do that.
If you watch the actual kick itself, as he's kicking it, both hands are like this instead of like this. Because I'm like, I am not getting kicked. So I get the ball right before he goes to kick it, I do this. But the ball stays straight up.
It's stuck there in the mud.
How about that?
It was about as sweet a win as I've ever been involved with. And then, as they say, the rest is history. Brett has never missed a game since.
Farve won one job that day and lost another.
Wasn't long after that I was removed from holding. I was willing to do whatever it would take to be a great quarterback. But I didn't know what that was.
Brett Favre was one of the most gifted quarterbacks the NFL had ever seen.
Wide open zone touchdown.
He played with a wide-eyed enthusiasm.
And Darrell Thompson is tackled in the end zone by Brett Favre.
Was oblivious to pressure.
Well, I could sure use a hot dog with chili.
And was competitive beyond reason.
Brett doesn't back down from anybody. He's taking on a full-grown defensive end.
But he had absolutely no clue how to play quarterback.
Holy smoke. Man's all over the joint here.
Hey, will you settle down, please? Just settle down, nice and easy. Settle down, okay?
I had as much fun coaching Brett Favre as I have any player I've ever had in my life.
Why didn't he?
The frustration I would have would be trying to kind of harness at times just this wild stallion.
Now, are you all right?
Yeah.
No more rocket balls, please.
Well, I was chained up.
No, I know.
When you play the position, sometimes you have to live for another day.
Throw it away. Throw it away. Throw it away. Throw it away. Second down, 11. Quick go. Pick it off. Interception.
I worked hard, practiced hard. I watched film, but I had to be honest. I mean, when I first started watching film, I was just watching the game. I kept hearing our coaches talk about nickel. They're going to sub, and it's going to be nickel. Well, I just played along. Okay, you had nickels in, you know. Finally, one day I pulled Ty aside and said, Ty, what are they talking about when they say nickel? He looks at me, he goes, you're joking, right? And I said, no. I said, what is nickel? He says, well, they pull out a linebacker and they bring in a DB, passing situation. And I said, that's it? He said, yeah, that's it. I said, who cares?
Favre steps up with the blocking. He flips it into the end zone. Touchdown, Green Bay.
I was able to offset some of what I hadn't learned yet by my playmaking ability. And there'd be guys coming free everywhere. I'd just take off running.
Behind, got away. Still, touchdown. Holy cow.
Mike's over here. Great play. Okay. What am I supposed to say?
Mike Holmgren tried to rein in Favre by teaching him the West Coast offense he'd run with Joe Montana and Steve Young in San Francisco. It wasn't easy.
It's a tough place to get the ball.
When they throw the book at you, that offense is like, oh my God. Are you kidding me? There's like 1,000 plays you could go in every game with.
Red left slot. If they hug us up now, we'll go back to the backside. Don't see any ghosts out there, though.
Just the terminology.
22 Texas, halfback burst.
22 Texas, and you're going, why is it called Texas? Some coach way back when, Sid Gilman, said that play reminded him of Texas. Some girl he used to date in Amarillo, so he names it Texas.
Whoa, 58, 30%.
You're thinking, how am I supposed to remember that?
It was only natural for Favre to rebel against Holmgren's authority.
What do you think Mike would do if he knew I had a dip right now?
You have one in?
Just make the ice capades.
You got to have a little fun. We're going to get our work done, but we got to relax a little bit and have fun.
You think God never farted?
There's Mr. Miyagi up here on the see him on the board. Oh yeah, wax on, wax off. Keith Jackson. Just the other morning I had breakfast at Tracy Rocker's house. His mama brought out 15 flapjacks. He said, "Mama, take back 5 of them flapjacks. I got to stay hungry for the Crimson Tide."
There was no laughing off an NFL high 24 interceptions in 1993. Some people began clamoring for Favre's backup, Mark Brunell.
He guns it over the left side.
Make the switch. Put in the other quarterback. Come on. Wait a minute. But, no, wait a minute. But you know what? He's got to know he's up here, okay?
The newspapers would say things, talk radio, whatever. I was convinced Brett was the guy that was going to take us to wherever we're going to go. And I said, look, forget about all that. You and I are joined at the hip. And we're either going to get to the top of the mountain together or we're going to wind up in a dumpster. But it'll be together. You got to commit. And I committed to him. And then he just continued to get better and better and better.
Now throw sidearm downfield. Shot open. Touchdown.
How about far west left slot pass 396 V Omaha? All right, 396. Go. Make it happen.
Farve looking. Now comes to the end zone. In traffic. Wow. Oh, I don't know. Right between 2 defenders.
Favre rocketed towards the top of the NFL and led the Packers to the playoffs for just the second time in 2 decades.
Favre is on the run. Favre is down the sidelines. Favre, touchdown! He dived into the end zone. Unbelievable. What a way to get this team into the playoffs.
By 1995, he was the league's most valuable player and its most exciting.
Favre looking. Now Favre running. Come on, run it. He's going to throw it to the end zone. He's open. It's sharp. Right open. Touchdown! With 55 seconds left. This is the best thing that's happened in Green Bay in a long time.
Brett Favre was on top of his game. His next challenge would be taking the Packers to the top of the NFL. She was with him from the very beginning.
I've known Brett since elementary. We always knew each other. We went to a small school. When we were in college, he used to throw to me. I don't think I realized the strength in his arm until I started catching more. There was no way I would ever tell him that, he was hurt my hand, or I think my hand was bruised the next day, but I wouldn't tell him. I just kept catching it.
And then his dad says, you're throwing too hard to her. He said, she can handle it.
Deanna Tynes could catch just about everything Brett Favre threw her way. They'd been together 10 years and still weren't married when she finally moved to Green Bay with their young daughter, Brittany. That's when he threw her a curveball.
I think it took about a month, and I realized there was something, really strange going on, and he was staying up all night long, probably till 3 or 4 in the morning, playing on the computer, watching TV, and then he would get up at 7 o'clock and go to work. Every evening, I think I expected him to come home, take a nap, and get some rest, and he just didn't do it. He was sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night, and that's just not normal.
At first, I guess it's like anyone with addiction. At first, you don't think much about it, even though you're doing it every day. Had it been affecting my play, I would have said, hey, this is killing me. But hell, I was playing great, wasn't sleeping, was practicing fine, no one knew anything.
Favre's use of the painkiller Vicodin was not a secret. His addiction was.
We all knew that he was taking Vicodin, and he would not miss a game. We all know that. He's got over 200 in a row. He would not miss a game. But what most people don't know, he wouldn't miss a practice. He did not want to miss a practice, not a walkthrough. His intentions were noble. It was because he wanted to be out there with his teammates every day and not let anybody down.
Never took it before a game. And at first I used it for pain. And after a while I used it for recreation. And I knew that was wrong. Eventually that'll land you in jail if it doesn't kill you.
By January of '96, he was taking a dozen pills a day. Then his addiction nearly did cost him his life.
Routine scope on my ankle and had a seizure in the hospital room, and that's kind of when it hit me.
All of a sudden, he just started convulsing, and I just remember Brittany yelling, "Is my daddy going to die? Is my daddy going to die?" And that's when they decided you need to be in rehab.
It's kind of a difficult time because voluntarily I'm going to admit into a in-treatment facility for however long it takes to get better. And my objective is to get better so I can continue to play at a level that I have and to get to a Super Bowl. Fortunately for me, I didn't lose my wife and my kids. I didn't lose my life, didn't lose my job, and was able to rebound from it.
After 45 days in rehab, he was released and made 2 vows. One to the woman he finally married, the other to lead the Packers to the Super Bowl.
Mike and I did a press conference, started training camp, and I said, if you don't think we're going to do it, just bet against me. And, hell, I didn't know what I was. Mike's probably going, what in the hell is he doing?
Coming out of there, it's what you write books about, I suppose.
It's a familiar story. The hero hits rock bottom, picks himself up, and fights his way to the top.
Here's Farve on a pump. Rolls to the right now. A pump and go for Antonio Freeman. Did he catch it? Touchdown! I can't believe it. Play.
6 months after checking out of rehab, Farve earned the second of 3 straight MVP awards. He also made good on that promise about the Super Bowl.
And looking back, and I think even at the time, it seemed like the script was already written, and that's the way it was supposed to be. We were supposed to go to New Orleans, and what better place for me to play my first Super Bowl.
For his entire career, his coaches begged him to stick to the script. In Super Bowl 31, it took him 2 plays to rewrite it.
Appears to be changing plays at the line of scrimmage.
The kid who didn't know what a nickel defense was called an audible and cashed in.
Wide open. It is going to be a touchdown to Andre Rison. Rison takes it across the goal line.
Look at Brett Favre coming off the field. He is so happy.
Playing an hour away from his hometown, it was fitting that the old running quarterback from Hancock High ran one in to seal a world championship.
And if he wants to, he's going to run to the goal line. Yes, touchdown. The Vince Lombardi Trophy is coming home. World champion, Green Bay Packers.
What he did that day is part of the legend, I suppose.
In January of 1998, Brett Favre was on top of the football world. The Packers were in their 2nd straight Super Bowl.
32 seconds left.
But this time the results were different.
Got some time. Comes up over the middle. Threw it back. And Denver will win the Super Bowl. Well, he's human. Yeah, he is.
His next loss was an even bigger one. After 7 seasons, Mike Holmgren left Green Bay. Over the next 5 years, the Packers won just 1 playoff game. As the losses mounted, so did Favre's frustrations.
I'm so drained right now.
He hadn't missed a game since 1992, the longest streak of consecutive starts by a quarterback in NFL history. All those Sundays were finally taking a toll.
Up until a couple of years ago, I never thought anything about playing with pain, overcoming injuries. The only broken bone I've ever had in my body was this past year was my thumb. That's the first time I ever broke a bone.
In 2003, Favre led the league in touchdown passes for a record-tying 4th time. A remarkable feat considering he played most of the season with a broken right thumb. On a Monday night in Oakland in late December, he also played with a broken heart. About 24 hours before the Packers were to face the Raiders, Favre was playing golf with teammates Ryan Longwell and Doug Peterson.
And Doug's cell phone goes off. No big deal. He picks it up and says, "Oh, hey, Deanna."
He immediately knew from my reaction on the phone that something was wrong.
He gives me the phone, and it's Deanna. I'm like, right away, "What is it?" And she said, "It's your dad." And I just knew. I dropped the phone, and I didn't even ask what it was. I knew he was dead.
While America learned that Irv Favre had died of a heart attack, Brett wondered whether he should play the next night.
I knew he'd play because I knew right away his first thought was he probably could hear Irvin in his head, "Don't you give up, don't you quit."
And I wasn't going to let him quit.
You get on that field tomorrow night and you do what you have to do. This is business. Take care of business.
He knows when to be business, and he knows when to play.
That's what his dad would want him to do, play football. That's what he lived for.
When you can't crawl off the field, I'll come get you.
And I could see Big Irv standing over there going, "Brett, you're going to play.
You're not coming off the field.
I don't care. You're going to play."
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Of all the guys whose fathers were coaching, I mean, there's no doubt that he get your ass out there and play. Are you crazy? I mean, I could see him saying that.
I suggested, since so many of his teammates were concerned about him, that we walk down to the team meeting together, and on the way down there, he asked if he could speak to the team.
He said that he had our back as a football team, as a player, as an individual. You say that all the time with your buddies. "Oh, man, I got your back. I got you on this one. I got you on that one." Well, he comes down in the midst of just losing his father and telling 53 players and then obviously coaches and everybody else that he had our back. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop in that room.
He spoke about his love for his father. He talked about his love of his teammates, and then his love of his profession, how much he loved football and wanted to play in the game the next day and was going to give the guys the very best he had.
I remember walking across that field to get to our executive box, and one young kid, and he had a couple beers in his hand, yelled out, "Mrs. Favre, Mrs. Favre." And she looked up in the stands, and he raised a beer to her and said, "We're so sorry for your loss."
What impressed me were the Oakland fans. They were so respectful, and that was awesome.
I got a standing ovation from the fans. That doesn't happen. Words couldn't even explain how I felt. I was so nervous before a game. I was the most nervous I've ever been in a game. I couldn't breathe before a game. I didn't let on like I was. Butterflies is an understatement. I mean, it was crazy.
Here's this toughest man in America trying to hold it together. It's his dad, and the world is watching.
I was so worried that I would lay an egg in that game. And I think people watching would say, "Hey, it's understandable. His father just passed away." I didn't want that. I wanted to leave that game and be proud of the way I played and want him to say, "Hey, you played well."
Favre takes, looks to throw, guns the left side of the end zone, and it's diving grab, caught in the corner of the end zone. What a throw by Brett Favre.
I go out and hold for the extra point, so I'm one of the first guys out there to greet him, and you could just see he was thinking about his father, and he probably in the back of his mind said, "That one was for you."
I had tears coming down my eyes as I was running out there, and I look over at Doug to nod to say we're ready for the kick, and he had tears coming down his eyes, and this is why we're on the field kicking an extra point, so it meant a lot to us to have him succeed to the level he did.
Favre responded to the worst moment in his life by playing the greatest game of his career. He threw for 399 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Down the middle, going for Walker. Leaping grab, end zone, touchdown!
Brett Favre is on fire tonight.
Clearly, he felt his father's presence and the support of his wife.
I think there was an awful lot of eye contact between Brett on the field and Deanna in the box. They've been high school sweethearts. They have 2 children together. They really understand each other so very well.
I just felt for Brett, and I mean, my heart was just breaking, and just wanted to be holding his hand and just telling him after every play what a great job he did, and you're going to make it through, and, you know, your dad's watching.
You know, I believe in God, was born and raised Catholic, never really considered myself overly spiritual. If there was ever divine intervention, he was there that night. Because under the perfect circumstances, I've never been able to do what I've done in that game.
I remember specifically some of these Hail Mary passes, and I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, Brett, don't do this, don't do this. And as Deanna is hanging on to me and squeezing my arm, she's like, Father, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. I think she was challenging me to have a little more faith, at least in Brett, if not in God, that all would be okay.
And the way the guys just kind of rose up to the challenge was amazing.
To fight that hard and want something as bad as we all wanted it for another person, the guys went to a level that I've never ever seen before. And to be honest with you, I don't expect I'll ever see it again.
It was almost divine intervention. But then you just sit back and say, no, it's not, it's Brett Favre.
You'd get so excited, and then you'd cry. You know, it was just such an emotional seesaw, I guess you'd say, up and down. But I guess you live through it, you know.
The outcome of that game, it was so emotional, but it was so special. I mean, it was like, you know, the entire game was specifically for his dad. It was so hard, but it just made it so special that we all, you know, just kind of rallied around his performance, and you just kind of hang on to that, and it was like he was really there. So it had a great impact on getting us through.
I just told him, you're my hero, and you know, I've never seen anybody play with that passion, and I'm so happy for you and proud of you that you know, you got to do this.
I believe I told him I thought his dad would be proud of him today.
Irvin Favre was laid to rest on December 24th in Pass Christian, Mississippi. Brett did not speak at the service. He'd already honored his father the best way he knew how.
I do not have to give a eulogy for Big Irv. If you want to hear and see a eulogy for Irvin, go back and look at the game that Brett played the other night. That's the eulogy to Irv.
If this were a Hollywood movie, Brett Favre would have overcome the death of his father and led the Packers to another championship. But this wasn't Hollywood. It was Philadelphia. 2 games short of the Super Bowl, Favre threw the interception that ended the Packers' 2003 season.
It's a shame for our team to end the season losing, but it's a shame for me to walk away off that field knowing that all the things I'd been through that season, that it ends this way. But if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change not one thing. I'd break my thumb again. I would bring my dad back, but I would play the game the same way.
If anybody ever earned the right to ride off into the sunset, it was Brett Favre. But in 2004, the Packers started 1-4. His brother-in-law died while riding in an all-terrain vehicle, and his wife was diagnosed with breast cancer.
I've never found myself saying, why me or why us? It takes too much time, and it doesn't matter anyway, because it is what it is, and you deal with it the best way possible.
He's dealt with it the same way he's weathered every storm since 1992, by starting at quarterback for the Green Bay Packers.
The object is you got to play the game, and he loves the game, and he plays it. And that's Brett Favre. He's going to play.
Ron, thanks for giving this old redneck a chance in the frozen tundra. Your other son, Brett. That's the inscription hanging on Ron Wolf's wall, right above the signatures of the greatest Iron Men in American sports history. Cal Ripken Jr., Lou Gehrig, and Brett Favre. The man who couldn't pass his physical 13 years ago has now passed for nearly 50,000 yards.
That was one magnificent throw by Brett Favre.
Boy can still sling it, can he?
Good evening, everyone. History tonight. Quarterback Brett Favre starts his 200th consecutive game behind center. He has resurrected the Packers from a difficult 1-4 start, overcoming personal tragedy and injury to lead Green Bay back into playoff contention.
For his 200th start, his 132nd win, Brett Favre, come on up there. They don't make it much tougher than this guy.
Since the day he replaced Don Majkowski, the Packers have won more games than any team in the NFL. Along the way, Brett Favre won the respect of everyone who ever watched him play, even his old man.
Brett's gone through a lot of ups and downs, but the big thing is Brett's always found a way to overcome all the downs that he's had to go through. You know, it makes me happy to know that somebody out of my household and a kid that I coached and happens to be my own child has accomplished so much.
In Super Bowl 31, the team from Titletown traveled to New Orleans to take on the New England Patriots.
I'm Lambo Man. I'm Green Bay Man.
Vince wants me to bring the trophy back.
My mom told me when I was little I was going to be a big-time player, so I'm about to find out.
What most fans already knew was that Brett Favre was more than a big-time player.
To be changing plays at the line of scrimmage. Two wide receivers right. Chimera is the tight end to the right, and back goes Brett to throw. Here they come. He's got time. He's throwing it downfield. He's got it wide open. It is going to be a touchdown. Rising. Takes it across the goal line.
Look at Brett Favre coming off the field. He is so happy.
I think old Brett called the exact right audible for the situation there.
This time he's going to go long upfield. There's wide open. Freeman, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25 down the sideline.
He's all the way.
A long pass play.
No
Brett Favre again checking out at the line of scrimmage. And Antonio Freeman on a perfect throw by Brett Favre. It is 81 yards and a touchdown, and the Packers back in the lead.
Hey, we got some big plays coming.
The biggest play of the game, however, didn't come from Green Bay's dangerous offense. Instead, it came from the Packers' smallest, but most lethal weapon.
Here is a high floater. Boy, this is a nice kickoff. Desmond Howard has to back up. Can't get the run from the goal line to the 5, to the 10, to the 15. Through a hole to the 20. To the 30, outside, to the 40. He may be gone. Midfield, to the 40, the 30, the 25, 20. Touchdown for Desmond Howard.
He has been MVP without a doubt.
The MVP's 99-yard return was not the only record set on this day. Reggie White notched a new Super Bowl record for sacks in a game.
And here goes Bledsoe back. Here they come. Reggie. They got him again. Back in the 20. Hello, Reggie. 3 sacks for Reggie.
And 3 Super Bowl titles for the Green Bay Packers. Champions for the first time in 29 years.
This trophy, as important as it is to any other team and any other player, it means more